Um, Hi, my name is Ren Smith, and I'm an organizer with Sierra Club. Thank you for joining us today as we gather to deliver a letter of principles to Xcel Energy to consider as it prepares its upcoming long-term energy plan, known as an Electric Integrated Resource Plan, or ERP. 4,025 community members and 83 elected officials have signed this letter to Xcel's leadership, urging the state's largest utility to implement each of these principles into its ongoing modeling for the energy plan it will file next spring. We're delivering the letter now so that Xcel has time to honor our requests as it prepares for next spring. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll hear brief remarks from community members and elected officials who have signed the letter, including Denver City Council member Candi Cdebaca, community organizer Lucy Molina, Jamie Valdez, community team coordinator with Mothers Out Front, Sunni Benoit, president of the board for 350 Colorado, Juan Marcano, Aurora City Council member, and Jamie Harkins, mayor of Lafayette. But first, I'd like to share more about the letter of principles to Xcel Energy. This summer, wildfires caused by increasingly hot and dry conditions teamed up with rampant pollution and ever more frequent ozone alerts to create a perfect storm of hazardous air. In a world where we were already isolated indoors due to a global pandemic, the air itself became another oppressive force, reminding us to shelter in. On a quick walk around my neighborhood a few weeks ago, I was shocked at how quickly my throat and eyes began to sting. The Front Range was obscured by a blanket of gray-brown smoke, and the sun burned red. If the year 2020 has taught me anything, it's that humanity has been on the brink of a crisis for a very long time. We are now faced with a choice. Will we trust that our climate will wait for us to catch up, or will we take decisive action now to protect our future? When Xcel Energy Colorado operates the last 3 coal plants in our state still scheduled to burn past the year 2030, the choice they are making is clear. But we are here today to urge Xcel to change that. Next spring, Xcel Energy will propose a new electric resource plan, or ERP. Through this plan, Xcel will decide which energy resources they'll use to provide power to their customers, which make up more than half of the state's population. This is our opportunity to make our voices heard, take action on climate change, and deliver justice to the communities impacted by Xcel's fossil fuel power plants. Last year, Colorado passed the ambitious House Bill 1261, our climate action plan to reduce pollution, which, among other steps, mandates an 80% reduction in pollution in the electric sector by 2030. One of the principles in our letter calls on Xcel to recognize this 80% mark as a floor, not a ceiling, and to reduce emissions by as much as possible as quickly as possible. The remaining coal power plants on Xcel's system are the worst offenders, hazardous to public health, devastating to our climate, and no longer cost-effective. That's why we're here today to ask Xcel to retire all coal that is cost-effective to do so. And as we've seen in the latest reports, all of Xcel's coal power is cost-effective to retire early. But retiring coal is just one part of our vision for the future, for a better public service utility in Colorado. The rest of our guests today will explain a little more about our asks for Xcel and why they're so important to Coloradans. So without further ado, I'll pass it along to our first speaker this morning, Denver City Council member Candi Citabaca.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Candi Cdebaca, and I'm the City Council representative for Denver's 9th District. When my constituents elected me in 2019, I promised to do everything in my power to protect my community, especially our most marginalized, and that is why I'm here today. It's time for Xcel Energy's leadership to pursue a plan that puts people ahead of pollution. Xcel Energy is the electricity provider for the Denver community, and right now, Xcel is working on its electric resource plan, as mentioned, to decide which energy resources to use to power our community in the future. Despite plans to achieve 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050, Xcel is not moving fast enough to retire coal and gas plants that pollute our air and climate, and that is unacceptable to me and my constituents. Xcel's dirty fossil fuel plants pour toxic pollution directly onto nearby communities that are already burdened by economic and health problems. In some cases, these are already overburdened communities where pollution falls disproportionately on Black, brown, and low-income people. A textbook example is my neighborhood here in Swansea near the Cherokee fracked gas plant in North Denver. Denver's communities are no place for a dirty gas plant. Xcel should use this planning process to get dirty fossil fuels like Cherokee out of our neighborhoods. I must reiterate, Denver is committed to 100% renewable energy by 2030, and we cannot and will not reach that goal if we have a gas plant still burning fossil fuels in our community. It's as simple as that. Xcel must address the many interconnected injustices that pollution-affected communities face, and they can do so by retiring the Cherokee gas plant and by promising to never build another dirty fossil fuel plant, and providing ample opportunity for my Denver constituents to weigh in on planning processes about where their energy is going to come from in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candi. Next, we'll hear from community organizer Lucy Molina.
Hola, buenos días. Good morning and welcome. My name is Lucy Molina and I'm a community organizer. I'm here today with two requests that are outlined in our letter of principles to Xcel Energy. Xcel, please. 1, minimize the use of existing gas-fired power plants and the acquisition of new gas plants. And 2, ensure that communities with existing fossil fuel infrastructures share in the benefit of new clean energy infrastructures, especially communities that have been disproportionately burdened by environmental injustice due to fossil fuel infrastructure in the past. As utilities like Xcel Energy take steps toward more clean energy in Colorado, we must ensure that the benefits of a clean energy economy are being realized by the communities that have been and are still currently burdened by Xcel's pollution, which are most often communities of color and low-income communities as a result of environmental racism. That is why Xcel Energy's expensive and dirty Cherokee gas plant in North Denver must be retired as soon as possible and replaced with local clean energy and storage technology in order to realize the benefits of cleaner air and safer neighborhoods for the surrounding community. Xcel should plan to retire the Cherokee gas plant as part of its ERP process. Based on EPA's EJ screen, nearly 67,000 people live within 3 miles of Cherokee gas plant. Looking at the demographics of the population compared to the state of Colorado, this community ranks in the 91st percentile in Colorado for minority population, 83rd percentile in Colorado for low-income population, and 89th percentile in Colorado for linguistically isolated populations. According to the CNP, SMNP, in the 2 full years the Cherokee gas plant has been operating with gas as the primary fuel, 2018 and 19, it has emitted nearly 2 million pounds of NOx, a precursor to ozone and secondary particulate matter that pollutes the local community. This is on top of the pollution the Globeville, Elyria, Swanson community burdens from the 2 major highways, the Suncor refinery and nearby Superfund sites. As the EPA cites, NOx exposure over a short period of time is known to aggravate asthma and leading to coughing, difficulty breathing, and emergency room visits. Longer exposure is known to contribute to the development of asthma and other respiratory infections, especially in children and the elderly. That is why I'm here today, to urge Xcel Energy to do right by the communities that are impacted by its energy choices. Include us meaningfully in your planning process, and keep your dirty fossil fuels like Cherokee gas plant out of our neighborhoods. Muchas gracias.
Thanks, Lucy. Next, we'll hear from Jamie Valdez, Community Team Coordinator with Mothers Out Front.
Hello all, and thanks for joining today. My name is Jamie Valdez, and I'm the Pueblo Team Coordinator for Mothers Out Front here in Pueblo, Colorado. All around the globe, people of color bear a greater burden for the health problems that result from higher exposure to waste and pollution. This occurs due to polluting sites like fossil fuel power plants, which release toxic materials. Colorado is no exception. Comanche is one of Xcel's 3 remaining coal plants and sits in a majority Latinx community in Pueblo, Colorado, where I live. That is why Xcel Energy must use this planning process to make plans to retire its coal plants as soon as possible before 2030. Communities like Pueblo, located near coal-fired power plants, face increased risks of respiratory disease, lung cancer, cardiovascular disease, and other health problems, as well as higher death rates at earlier ages. Across Colorado, 4.4% of adults have been diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, but in Pueblo County, 9.9% of adults have been diagnosed. What's worse, all of the energy from Comanche goes to Denver metro area and doesn't benefit my community. Today, people in Pueblo are left with all of the pollution and health problems from Xcel's Comanche coal plant and none of the energy. Right now, Comanche 3 is not expected to retire until 2070, continuing this legacy for decades. While Comanche has brought many health and sustainability concerns to Pueblo, it is also a major employer in the area. Our letter calls on Xcel to coordinate with unions and workforce leaders to develop fair work transition plans for employees affected by the retirement of existing power plants, so that no workers get left behind, but are instead given the opportunity and support to transition to new jobs. Comanche 3 is expected to be the last coal plant to burn coal in Colorado, and we need to move its retirement up as early as possible so that my community is not bearing the burden of pollution for other Front Range communities well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Next, we'll hear from President of the Board for 350 Colorado, Sunni Benoit.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you again for joining us today. My name is Sunni Benoit, and I'm here as the President of the Board for 350 Colorado. As the climate crisis drastically changes our communities and our way of life in Colorado, it is critical that our state's largest electric utility do everything possible to reduce carbon emissions. But coal plants are not the only culprits of climate pollution. Gas-fired power plants are a threat to our planet and our health as well. The combustion of frac gas releases methane, a greenhouse gas that is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide. It is critical that Xcel Energy moves swiftly away from burning fossil fuels like coal and frac gas in our communities. That's why I want to highlight the 2 following principles in our letter to Xcel Energy. We urge Xcel Energy in its upcoming planning process to first, minimize the use of existing gas-fired power plants and the acquisition of new gas plants. And second, maximize the use of renewables and storage resources that have 0 direct emissions of greenhouse gases and other air pollutants. As Xcel must make plans to retire the rest of its coal in Colorado, gas-fired power plants are not a viable replacement option. Xcel already owns thousands of megawatts of gas-fired plants in our state. That is already thousands of megawatts too many. Data from multiple reports, including a 2019 study by the Rocky Mountain Institute, finds that 90% of proposed gas plants in the next 5 years could be cost-effectively avoided with clean energy and are at risk of saddling customers with expensive, unnecessary fossil fuel infrastructure. Xcel can avoid this mistake by skipping over investment in new dirty frac gas plants and instead transitioning to clean energy and storage technology that will clean up our air and boost our local economies. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunni. Next up, we have Juan Marcano, Aurora City Council member.
All right. Thank you so much, and I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. My name is Juan Marcano, and I have the honor and pleasure of representing Ward 4 on the Aurora City Council. And I'm really excited to be here today as one of the more than 50 elected officials who signed the letter of principles to Xcel Energy, asking for a fair and just transition to cleaner energy for our Colorado communities. So as the 3rd largest city in Colorado, Aurora has a lot to gain from jobs, manufacturing, and cost savings that come with transitioning to a clean energy economy. Aurora is already home to the Solar Technology Association Acceleration Center, or SolarTAC, which is the country's largest outdoor testing facility for solar technologies. Excuse me. But that is just the beginning. The city of Aurora is also in the process of electrifying its fleet and installing charging stations, many of which will be usable by the public. In addition, my colleagues and I are also working to find other areas where we can improve sustainability in order to protect our water supply and improve public health outcomes. And that is why it is essential that Xcel maximizes the use of renewable and storage resources that have zero direct emissions of greenhouse gases and other air pollutants for our communities. I also want to highlight one of the 9 principles in the letter, and that is incorporate all cost-effective and achievable energy efficiency and demand response resources into the plan. In 2018, 12% of Aurora's residents lived at or below the poverty line, and many more are heavily burdened by the cost of housing. So this is a significant percentage of our community that would hugely benefit from lower energy bills that come with a cleaner and with cleaner energy sources and better energy efficiency programs. So we're thankful for the carbon reduction commitments that Xcel has made thus far. There's still work to be done though, and our community really wants to be a partner and help get this done. So we are asking Xcel to honor these requests from ratepayers and community members as they continue to contribute to Colorado's energy future. So thank you all.
Thanks so much, Juan. And finally, we'll hear from Jamie Harkins, the mayor of Lafayette.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I am here as the mayor of Lafayette to urge our city's electricity provider, Xcel Energy, to continue on the path past 80% carbon reductions by 2030 to 100% renewable energy future. Lafayette is one of 16 cities and counties in Colorado that is totally committed to delivering 100% renewable energy in the next 15 years. I was really proud of my community when we made that commitment back in 2017, and I stand by it. As a Colorado-based company, Xcel's responsibility is to deliver affordable and reliable electricity in alignment with the interests and values of Coloradans. We have so much to gain from a clean energy economy that will bring clean air, clean water, and very importantly, clean jobs for current and future generations. You know, every day we're seeing more and more impacts from climate change, and so many of those impacts are falling on local communities and states to pay for. As a small city with limited funding, we are doing our part to partner on solar gardens, explore building electrification strategies, increase EV charging infrastructure, and more. As Xcel Energy prepares to present an electric resource plan for the Colorado Public Utilities Commission's review and approval, I heartfeltly urge Xcel's leadership to use that plan to pave the way for 100% renewable energy in communities like mine. As Colorado works to reduce greenhouse gas emissions economy-wide by 2030 in order to meet the goals in HB 19-1261, I urge Xcel to plan for robust levels of transportation and building electrification in their planning as well. Colorado communities like mine are really relying on Xcel Energy to ensure that our state is reaping the benefits of a clean energy economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie. And thank you to all of our speakers. Again, we're thrilled to share that this letter of principles has garnered support from 4,025 community members, as well as an additional 83 from elected officials. It's over 4,000 people, Xcel customers, impacted community members, mayors, council members, senators and representatives, and more, who are calling on Xcel to do better this spring. Our health cannot wait, our climate cannot wait, and we cannot wait any longer for Xcel's actions to reflect what Coloradans want, renewable energy. It's time for Xcel to acknowledge that their shareholders are not the only stakeholders in this planning process. What comes out of the ERP next year will have a significant effect on our climate, the resiliency of our economy, and the health of impacted communities that have suffered for too long. It's time for Xcel's leaders to sit at the table and engage with people in neighborhoods that will be impacted by their resource planning outcomes. Residents of Pueblo, Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, and more, for whom this energy resource plan is not just a document, but a vital opportunity to protect the health and future of their families. The final principle in the letter calls for robust community engagement in the neighborhoods Xcel's ERP will impact. And this is just one part of a movement to hold Xcel accountable. This letter delivery comes 1 month after Xcel Energy sent out notices to customers sharing that it plans to resume electric and heat shutoffs for Coloradans who cannot pay their bills during a global pandemic and the worst economic crisis we've seen since the Great Depression. As we move into fall and winter, we cannot forget that while I'm privileged to fight for clean energy, some of my neighbors will be fighting to stay warm. It is important that we can provide clean and affordable power to all Coloradans. While all the problems facing Colorado's health and environment may seem insurmountable at times, the support behind this letter reminds me that our hope for a fossil-free future is alive and well. More than 4,000 of us are starting conversations about what a just energy future for Colorado means. This movement will only continue to grow, and we will be watching Xcel's moves next spring. We're delivering this letter today to give Xcel plenty of time to plan to honor our requests. Our message to you is this: don't let us down. Thank you so much again for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can follow up with us by reaching out to our press secretary, Thomas Young, by email at thomas.young@sierraclub.org. That's THOMAS_YOUNG @sierraclub.org. Thanks.